Yo, what's up YouTube? In this video I'm finally gonna bring that video that I promised about overclocking processors. So yeah, hope you enjoy. Hey YouTube. So I did all of the overclocking to my computer. Tonight I am going to run a stress test again, because remember I showed you how to easily overclock a Ryzen processor, but one, that was only for Ryzen processors, and two, you have to run the application every time you start Windows, and I got tired of that, so I figured, you know what, I'm going to actually overclock it from the BIOS this time. Fun fact, all Ryzen processors are unlocked, which is why you can easily overclock them. But if you have a older AMD processor, it may not be unlocked, or if you have an Intel processor, it might not be unlocked. You have to have an unlocked processor to do this. So, let's get into the video. Alright, first you'll want to go to your advanced mode. It'll be usually F7. On my board it is F7. And if you're on a, I don't know much about other motherboard manufacturers and how they have this set up, because the only other BIOS I've ever really seen is a 12-year-old one, so not very helpful, sorry. But get into your advanced settings, and it'll have a different name for all of this stuff, more than likely. I have an Asus X370 Prime, I believe, and so this is what mine looks like. And you're gonna have to set the custom CPU core ratio to manual. It'll be on auto when you first get there, so make sure you put it to manual. And then all of this stuff will be the way that it normally is. And when you're first overclocking, if you haven't done any kind of overclock on your processor, you have no idea what it's capable of, because not all processors are the same. Not all Ryzen 7 1700s can go to 3.9 GHz. Mine can't go to 4 GHz. Some can go to 4.1. So not all processors are created the same just because they are the same. It's called the silicon lottery. I just happen to get a pretty good one. It might not be able to go to 4 GHz, but it does 3.9 GHz comfortably. So, if you haven't done any overclocking at all and you don't know what it's capable of, just press the plus symbol. Get to the base speed that your processor was at, so mine's at 3000 megahertz for the base. Use the plus and minus symbols so that you do the smallest incremental increases and decreases that are possible. Because, like I said before, you don't want to make these crazy changes and then you turn your computer on and you're like, well, where do I go now? What do I do now? Alright, make tiny increases. If it's 3 GHz, go to 3.1 GHz. Increase the voltage by a very, very small percentage. And for this, mine, it's called VDDCR CPU voltage. Just look for something that looks like it says CPU voltage. You'll get the idea. Again, it'll be on auto. And my board, and I think most boards, have two options, either manual or offset mode. And what offset mode is that there you have the base voltage, and you can add it to offset like you can set it to offset there it is. To offset it, we'll go like, alright, so now it'll add 0.25 volts to the 1.337 that it already has. And you can subtract that. So instead of adding it, it would subtract 0.25. Alright, I prefer to keep it on manual. Alright, again, do small increases. Go up to what it was originally, which is 1.337. And once you're there, then you can make your tiny changes. Go to maybe 1.34, 1.35, but don't just go, let's go 1.8. Alright, one thing, most processors can't handle that. That's a really, really, really bad idea. And Ryzen processors, AMD actually has a safe voltage that they released. They do not recommend going above 1.45 volts, I believe it is, for a long-term overclock. If it's short-term, sure, go for it, but they don't recommend going that high. Anything below, I believe it's 1.45, should be relatively safe for a long-term overclock, which is what I'm trying to accomplish here. And I will test it tonight and find out if I was successful. Alright, remember, small incremental increases. If you're going to increase the frequency as much as you can, and only increase one thing at a time. Alright, if you increase it by 0.1 gigahertz, and it doesn't turn on, don't put it back to what it was before. Increase the voltage a little. If you were stable at 3.8 gigahertz and you go to 3.9 and it doesn't work, increase the voltage. If it still doesn't work, then back off a little bit, because that means that your processor might not be able to handle that. And another very important thing is make sure you are not overheating your computer, because you might be able to get 4.1 gigahertz and you're running at 1.4 volts and that's all great, and your CPU is running at like almost 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And you know what happens when that happens? It then thermal throttles. So you were getting this insane amount of frames per second in your favorite video game, and now you're getting 10 because the processor's overheating and it can't keep up now. So make sure that you have the necessary cooling too. So as I wrap this up, remember, very small increases on the voltage and the frequency. And I do suggest, I haven't heard of a motherboard, modern motherboard that doesn't have this, but you should have a setting, like a save preset that you can save all of this stuff to. And I found it. It's in my motherboard, it's called the ASUS overclocking profile. My profile is Profile 1. I called it tests because I was testing to see how it would work. I don't have any presets because I haven't done any overclocking before this, except for the program that I showed you earlier, how to easily overclock Ryzen processors. So if you just have the stock settings at first, you don't need to do this, because your motherboard, when you go to exit, it should have a thing that says reset to defaults. So if you didn't make any changes, that's great. You can just do that. But if you have a tiny overclock or something and you just wanted to go higher, you can save your profile. So I highly recommend doing that. And then when you finally get your final preset that you like, it's working perfectly, stable, save it. Save it to a flash drive if you want to. UEFI BIOSes are amazing now. You can save all of your settings. If this computer crashes, your motherboard dies, whatever, you get the exact same kind of motherboard, just pop it in, load your settings. Your friend has the same motherboard, just save it to your flash drive, go to your buddy's house. Alright, so you get the picture. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you learned something, If you didn't, dislike, comment, and tell me what you think. Bye.